Welcome to Practicing Life podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Pitzer. Welcome to the new year. We're in 2024. Hopefully, this will be a promising year. You've done your vision boards, you know what you want for this year. Whatever it is that you do, I'm a big fan of vision boards. So I love them and I love to set my intention for the years as well as send my blessings. So, anyway, that's an episode I could do if you would like. But for right now, what we are going to talk about is you can't afford to be in a relationship that has a ride or die mentality. Now, in the entertainment world, when you are watching movies, when you are reading books, this is a very common type of desired relationship, very fantasized, if you will. And as a fantasy writer, I know all about these things. But seriously, when I think of ride or die relationships in real life, I want to throw up. It comes up in my mouth like, yuck, gross. And I will also tell you that I probably was experiencing that type of relationship with my husband at one point in time. But that's why I have this visceral reaction to this type of relationship, because I ultimately know what it means, what it's costing a partner to have that type of relationship. So you might have the ride or die mentality. You might like it. It's like a phenomenon in fantasy books, right? In smut books, where you might have a character in a book that is acting or treating someone one way in a book. And in a book, it is super desirable. But in real life, you're like, don't ever touch me that way. Don't look at me that way. Don't talk to me that way. Right. So there is sometimes a difference between entertainment and what actually is happening. This goes for me as well. There are things that I can read in a book and I can totally enjoy because it's separate and it's a book. It's not real, but in real life, don't really care for it so much, right? So when you have somebody in a relationship that is encouraging or speaking to you about like it's you and me against the world, baby, like Bonnie and Clyde, it's you and me against the world. I'm gonna say right then and there, like run for your life. No, I would tell you to really observe that relationship, because to me that's 100% red signs, red flag. You don't want this relationship. That's the way I think about it, and there's reasons why. So let's talk about it. So when you have a ride or die type of relationship, or one partner is definitely talking about it's you and me against the world, it sounds pretty. And in the books, in the movies, and sometimes the way that your mind distort things in real life, you may think that this is a true sign of love. In entertainment, it is portrayed as the truest like form of love. And maybe not even the truest form of love, but maybe like a way of showing love and loyalty, commitment, those type of things. So even if you don't feel like it's the truest form of love, it's somewhere borderlining that love, that loyalty. Like if you love me enough, if you are loyal enough, you will be a ride or die partner. But in the reality of what happens in most relationships, I'm going to say most instead of all, right? I don't need to make this an all or nothing thing, but in most relationships, the power between the two couples are not equal. So if you are in a committed relationship, you're loyal, all that stuff, and both partners are sharing 100% power, control, decision making, maybe their ride or die relationship looks differently. But the way that it actually shows up in a lot of the relationships that are promoting it or are using it as a manipulation tool to guilt another person into doing X, Y, and Z. So when one or both partners are willing to do anything for another person, even violate their own moral or ethical codes, they are then in an unhealthy relationship. So you could potentially have a healthy relationship with some type of ride or die mentality. I'm just going to say that I don't see that very often, if at all, because you're already putting yourself into some type of controlling situation, because love shouldn't ask for you, to die for another person, right? So already in that mentality of just how the word is set up, you're leading into an unhealthy relationship. So when you have this type of relationship, the mentality actually works as a manipulation tool, because the whole point of it is, well, if you loved me enough, if you cared about me enough, you would do these things. So it's already set up to have some type of manipulation and some type of disproportionate power between two people, a partner. So in a healthy relationship, you wouldn't have to prove your love. You wouldn't have to go against your will, your morals, your values. And you wouldn't have to accept the consequences of your partner's behavior. It would be their consequences, not yours. But when you get into a ride and die relationship, all of those things are typically gone. So the relationship is not equal. There's typically one person who is making all of the decisions, or their opinion is the only one that counts, and their partner is the person that is expected to support them and go along with everything. These type of relationships typically do not have like the codependent person, typically, not always, but typically the codependent person is the person who is doing all of the forgiving, all of the tolerating, and all of the justifications. And do you know what those three things are? Those three things equal appeasing behavior. That's so far from love. So the definition of appeasing is pacifying or placating someone by agreeing to their demands. That's so far from love. So when you have a partner who is expected to forgive the other person for all of their whatever, for cheating on me, for gambling away our money, for spending all of our money, for staying out all night drinking, for not helping around the house with any of the chores. Like when you are doing all of the forgiving, and then you are tolerating all of this behavior because you're continuing to stay, which automatically means that you're tolerating. And it also means that even if you don't like it, and even if you don't disagree with it, you're still staying. That's tolerating. And then when you're justifying, well, he had a bad day. So of course, he went out drinking and, blew off some steam, and of course he was snapping at me and, belittling me and shaming me. Of course, all of these things. Like, just stop one moment and tell you again, because I use myself all the time as a reference. I get this. I justified my husband's behavior all the time. And not only that, I had to explain his behavior to other people. So like when my husband didn't show up for a dentist appointment and he got like a no-show $50 bill, like your copay, right? He went off on them and was so angry at them. This is typical for narcissistic behavior. They're never responsible for their own mistakes. It's always somebody else's fault. So in his case, even though he didn't show up, he didn't call, instead of accepting responsibility, he went into a blame and was like, this is not how you do good business. This is not how you treat your clients. This is not how you treat me. And was speaking to them with loud volumes, disrespectful, belittling behavior, right? I still go there. I still have my kids going there. This is back then. And so I had a habit. I had a habit of justifying his behavior, explaining his behavior. So, I would be so embarrassed sometimes by his behavior. And then I would call up. So in this instance, I would call up the dentist and I would be like, I am so sorry that my husband did this. Like, he normally doesn't see the bills. He's not aware of these things, right? Justifying his behavior, tolerating his behavior, and forgiving him. These three things all equal appeasing behavior. So yeah, I am 100% against the ride or die mentality, because it's not just my own personal experience, but this is what I countlessly see in couples with these kind of things. The power dynamic is not equal, not equal. These are usually unhealthy relationships. They often involve things like protecting your partner's wrongdoings, whether that's keeping whatever they're doing wrong, like a secret, or protecting, like for instance, when as a child, there was a lot of like further than just your spankings type of abuse. And my father would be like, don't tell anybody this stuff. This is none of their business. Like, don't talk about it. It's not okay to talk about these things, right? So I am protecting, in that case, my father's bad behavior. So these are the types of things that you see. You see the protecting of the wrongdoing. You see a partner following orders or their partner's expectations or demands. Again, going back to that appeasing word, right? Your opinion means nothing. Like, in fact, like it can cause a conflict for you even to state your opinion. Your job is to be supportive and to go along with everything that they want. Like, that's the type of behavior that you typically see. You're not allowed to question, because you're insulting their intelligence. You're disrespecting them. Like, these are the kind of things that you will see. You get into the habit of explaining your partner's behaviors, making excuses for them. You're expected to do things that you're uncomfortable with, and that can include like all sorts of things, whether that's like, like I remember one Christmas, my husband didn't want my I almost said mother-in-law, my sister-in-law to come over. And I was expected to tell this person that they couldn't come in. Well, I wasn't 100% comfortable with that. Yet I did it anyway, because like once upon a time, I used to have that kind of ride or die like relationship. And I just did everything that he wanted, because honestly, I was just avoiding conflict with him, because conflict with him was so painful. I didn't like it at all. So I am speaking from personal experience. I'm also speaking that you can get out of these situations and you can overcome. So you're expected to do things that you may not be comfortable with, whether that is something morally, sexually, mentally, verbally, whatever it may be. Your partner often prioritizes their needs over yours. So their needs are the only one that matters. So it's ride or die for you. But for me, I am going to make sure that my needs are met, and I am absolutely prioritized. Again, I'll use my relationship as an example. I care and give for a special needs child. I work, right? I am carrying the burden of the house, all the bills, my special needs kid, all of the doctor appointments, making sure all the bills are paid on time, the taxes are done. My husband goes to a job, like this is back then. And he would come home, he would expect the meals to be made, he would expect the house to be cleaned. Like, why am I doing all of these things too? And then he would be like, well, I'm going to the gym. I'll see you in like 2 to 3 hours, because he would work out for hours. And I would complain about this, and I expressed to him that this isn't really fair. And his response back to me was always, it's not my problem you don't prioritize taking care of yourself. I make going to the gym a priority. And so it's not my fault that you can't do the same thing that I can. So totally bypassing his responsibility and sharing the burdens of raising the kid and taking care of the house, right? It was just in his mentality, it was, hey, ride or die, you take care of everything so that I can have a really great life. In some ways, we have role reversed now. So my husband is, he has gone through that training to overcome like narcissistic behaviors. He's gone through a lot. He's changed. And he's so much more self-aware and self-conscious now of doing these kind of things. I think he's almost gone in the extreme opposite direction. So, he's more like, go to the gym. I'll take care of everything. You work. I'll take care of the kids, like all of these things. I make sure that we balance things out as best as I can, but it's on both of our shoulders to balance that out. Not on all of my shoulders, not on all on his shoulders. So Carrying on. You're blamed for everything. Again, another example for my husband, right? He would come in with his work keys, his car keys, and he would set them down and forget where he had set them down. And then it would be my fault that I didn't know where he set them down, that I didn't find them and put them back where they belong, right? It was never his fault. Like, these are the type of unhealthy behaviors that you see in an unhealthy relationship, and they're often associated with that power dynamic that is found in the ride or die relationships. So this is where I want to kind of split here and give you a different perspective, because one of the reasons that people stay in these kind of relationships, and there's lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is sunk cost. And this happens not only in your personal relationship, but it shows up like everywhere. And it's very, very common in the United States. So sunk cost, you hear of it more from a financial perspective. You hear out of it, like an example of sunk cost is a company spends, let's say, $1,000 on an ad, and the ad doesn't get them any more sales. It doesn't perform. It sucks. Yet they're like, well, I don't want to start all over. We can, make lemonade out of lemons, and you throw more money at it thinking like it will be better if we just spend more money or we do this differently. This is a sunk cost mentality. Instead of walking away, starting over, you're like, we've already invested so much, we just need to keep throwing money at a bad situation. This is how it's referred to in a financial situation, but it exists. It exists in all areas of your life where you have this type of mentality. It doesn't have to just apply to money. In a relationship, this looks like staying in a relationship that you don't always aren't happy with. It isn't, your needs aren't met. Like, it is staying in a relationship, often a romantic one, where your values are misaligned, because as you grow and as you change and as you evolve, sometimes you don't always evolve in the same way and you don't in the same direction, and you can start getting misaligned and your needs aren't met. But you stay together, and you will continue to stay together because you have been together for so long. Like, I've already spent like 5 years of my life. Like, you do this at work. I've worked at this job for 5 years. I'm not going to just throw away 5 years. I'm going to give it another year. I'm going to try to do this different. I'm going to get this promotion. The same mentality. You will stay in this relationship because you don't want to feel like you're a failure, because you don't want to give up, because we've been taught, at least in the US, like, quitting is for losers. Like, you don't quit. Quitting means you're a loser. Like, you're a failure if you don't make it work. Like, there's all of these mentalities, all of these painful, shameful feelings that you don't want to feel. But they're also stories in your head that you're deciding to believe in. So that's one factor to it. But you stay because you don't want to deal with the sunk cost. And the sunk cost is there. It's there. It doesn't change. So all you're doing is continuing to carry that baggage and increase your sunk cost. And if you remember my previous episode that I did, I don't know, 1 or 2 episodes prior to my like whole Christmas break, I talked about when you say yes to something, you're saying no to everything else. So when you saying yes to staying in this unhealthy relationship and continuing to make it work as best as you can, you are saying no to finding a good, healthy relationship. You're also saying, no, I don't want to experience the pain of breaking up. I don't want to experience having one income, whatever it is. Things aren't always just black and white. There's gray and all sorts of colors to it, but keep that in mind. So I showed you tons of signs of unhealthy relationships. You're not allowed to question. Your opinion doesn't count. You're often belittled for giving your opinion or shamed. You're used as a guilt trip. Like, come on, it's ride or die. It's me against the world. Like, you're expected to go along with everything that person says. You're often asked to break things that are your personal boundaries, your values, whatever. You're explaining this other person's behavior, justifying it. You're constantly forgiving them. You're tolerating things that you would not tolerate with most people, because if you're tolerating it with one person, you're most likely tolerating it somewhere, like with your parents, a friend, coworker, boss, whatever. So a healthy relationship, you don't have to prove your love. You don't have to go against your will. You don't have to accept the other person's consequences. Like, see the difference. And remember that appeasing is pacifying or placating someone by agreeing to their demands. And ask yourself, what does love mean to you? What is it? What do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like? What is it doing for you to stay in this relationship? A really big question. Just stop, let it soak in, rewind this and listen to it again. But I'm going to ask you this as a coach. When are you going to be more loyal to you than you are to your partner? So let's repeat that. When are you going to be more loyal to you than you are to your partner? Because that's where they get you. That's where the codependency is. That is your warning that their needs, that their wants, their desires, their opinions, their decisions, all of that baggage is more important than what you think, feel, express. So when are you going to stop being the ghost of you and start getting help? I can definitely help you revive that spirit within you, claim your personal power, work with your subconscious, recognize things. I can definitely help you with those things, but you have to be willing to experience discomfort and to say that I'm no longer going to tolerate these things. I'm no longer going to be an appeasing person. All right, everyone. I'm wishing you the best for the new year and reminding you that you matter. Much love to you.